Have you ever asked yourself, should I really get married again after 70? It may seem like a fresh chapter, a sweet second chance at companionship. But for many seniors, that decision, though made with hope, can unexpectedly lead to regret, stress, and unexpected complications. If you're in your golden years and contemplating remarriage, this video could be one of the most important ones you ever watch. At first, it seems beautiful, doesn't it? The idea of not having to eat dinner alone anymore, someone to laugh with, to sit beside on quiet mornings, a hand to hold in the later chapters of life. But love in your 70s is no longer just about romance. It's tied to everything you've built over a lifetime. And for many people, that's where things start to get complicated. Let me be clear, this isn't about discouraging love. It's about protecting yourself. It's about honoring your journey, your peace of mind, and the legacy you've worked decades to create. Because as lovely as companionship sounds, there are very real risks, especially when emotions move faster than paperwork. Perhaps you've recently met someone who makes you smile again. Or maybe your family or even friends have encouraged you to consider settling down once more. Maybe the house feels too quiet these days. That longing is completely human. But before you make a life-altering commitment, you deserve to know the full picture, what others often realize only after it's too late. This video isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to arm you with insight, clarity, and the wisdom to choose what's best for your future, not just emotionally, but practically. And as we explore the hidden truths of late-life remarriage, the final reason may completely shift your perspective on love, freedom, and personal security. Let's start with one of the biggest concerns, and it's one that catches many seniors off guard: the risk of financial entanglement. Falling in love in your 70s can feel like a warm light returning after a long winter. There's laughter again, shared meals, evening walks. But what many people don't realize is how quickly that light can cast long shadows, especially on your finances. You've worked hard to build a life savings, a retirement fund, a home, maybe a modest investment or two. That foundation took decades to shape. But one signature, yes, just one on a marriage certificate, can change everything, and not always for the better. Not because your new partner is out to deceive you. In fact, they may have the kindest heart. But once you're legally married, your assets can become legally entangled. If they come with medical debts, financial obligations, or children from a previous marriage, all of that can blend into your financial picture. You could suddenly find yourself responsible in ways you never anticipated. And if your new spouse becomes seriously ill, depending on the legal structure of your estate, you could be responsible for caregiving costs, nursing home bills, or hospital expenses that weren't part of your original retirement plan. That's why it's so important to approach remarriage with both heart and mind, because what starts as love could, without caution, affect everything you've carefully built. Many older adults step into a second marriage thinking they can just keep my money and your money separate. Sounds simple, right? Unfortunately, the reality is much more complicated. The moment you remarry, a whole host of financial consequences can quietly unfold, especially when it comes to benefits you may have been depending on. Let's say you've been receiving survivor benefits from your late spouse, Social Security pension, or government support like Medicaid. What many seniors don't realize is that those benefits may disappear the moment you say "I do" again. I once heard about a woman who had no idea she'd forfeit her late husband's Social Security. One month, her regular check just stopped arriving. That's when she realized that her second marriage came with a cost she hadn't anticipated, one she couldn't undo. Then there's something even more emotional: your legacy. You've worked your whole life, not just to support yourself, but to leave something behind, maybe for your children or even grandchildren. But when you remarry without careful estate planning, your assets may no longer follow the path you originally intended. You might think, "I trust my new spouse, they'd never take from my family." But here's the hard truth: life changes. Families clash. What starts with good intentions can spiral into legal confusion or emotional betrayal. Wills get rewritten, promises get forgotten. And before you know it, what you meant for your family ends up elsewhere. Even worse, the emotional and psychological toll of this financial loss can be devastating. Many seniors, once financially stable and independent, find themselves anxious, embarrassed, or even ashamed. Some hide their struggles from their adult children, too proud or too afraid to admit what's happened. That independence they spent a lifetime protecting, it slowly erodes piece by piece. And the marriage that was supposed to bring peace becomes a painful reminder of everything they have lost. Let me share a real-life example that left a lasting impression on me. There was a woman named Margaret, though let's change her name for privacy. She was 75, graceful, thoughtful, and deeply generous. After being widowed for nearly a decade, she met a man at her local senior center. He was gentle, shared her love of gardening, and seemed to understand her loneliness. Within a year, they married. What Margaret didn't realize was that her new husband had large unpaid medical bills and no retirement savings. At first, she helped him cover a few things here and there, but within 2 years, her own retirement fund had been drained. She even changed her will reluctantly after pressure from his adult children who had their eyes on what little was left. Her children were stunned. Their trust was broken. And Margaret, she felt trapped in a financial storm she never saw coming. This story isn't rare, and it's not about blaming love or companionship. It's about recognizing that at this stage in life, financial security isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about peace of mind. It's about freedom, the ability to live on your own terms without fear or dependence. Remarrying after 70 can offer emotional warmth, but if done without caution, it can quietly unravel everything you've built. And that's a price no one should have to pay for a second chance at love. If you've made it this far in life with a stable roof over your head, a warm meal on your table, and a modest plan for the years ahead, pause for a moment, truly pause, because remarriage at this stage may not only affect your emotions, but it could also stretch your physical and financial limits in ways you haven't anticipated. Your heart might whisper, "This feels right," but your well-earned peace of mind might be whispering something else. Think this through. And one of the most overlooked challenges of late-life remarriage is this: the unexpected weight of healthcare responsibility. By the time we enter our 70s, health stops being a distant concern. It becomes a daily priority. You've likely spent decades giving care to children, a spouse, perhaps even your own aging parents. And just when you're ready to rest, to focus on your own healing, your own balanced remarriage can quietly place you right back in the caregiver's role, only this time with far less strength to spare. Let's face it, our bodies change. Many of us are already managing chronic conditions, joint pain, high blood pressure, heart concerns, or diabetes. Each day might involve pills, doctor visits, special diets, or stretching routines just to stay mobile and independent. These routines take energy, both mental and physical. And yet, when you invite someone else into your life, someone who may have even more fragile health than you, you're not just gaining a companion, you're inheriting their entire medical journey. At first, it might seem manageable. Maybe they occasionally forget a dose of medication or need a hand going up the stairs. Nothing too disruptive, but slowly those little moments grow. Suddenly, you're the one scheduling appointments, refilling prescriptions, helping with bathing, dressing, maybe even dealing with mobility aids or hospital visits. And here's the truth: few talk about being a full-time caregiver in your 70s or 80s is exhausting. It drains your reserves physically, emotionally, spiritually. You may start skipping your own checkups just to focus on theirs. You might neglect your nutrition, your rest, your friendships. Over time, the toll is heavy. Some studies have even shown that older adults who care for a sick spouse experience increased health issues themselves and tragically may have a shorter life expectancy due to stress and burnout. Take a moment and really let that sink in. A person you love could unintentionally pull you into a level of caretaking that shortens your own journey. This isn't about blaming anyone for being ill. Illness is part of life. But if you are choosing to bring another person into your world, at this age, you deserve to know all the possibilities, not just the warm companionship, but the potential physical and emotional weight that could follow. Because what starts as love and laughter can over time become sleepless nights, medical paperwork, and a deep sense of being alone in your giving. That's not the vision most seniors have when they say, "I do again." You've cared for others long enough. You've earned the right to care for yourself, to live without guilt, without hidden burdens. And sometimes that means choosing peace over partnership, health over heartache. Why do so many older adults end up overwhelmed after remarrying? Because they pour everything they have, time, care, emotion, into supporting their new partner. And in the process, they stop tending to themselves. Their health slowly fades into the background. Their needs are silenced. Their strength wears down day by day until it's nearly gone. I remember meeting a woman named Linda. Let's change her name to respect her privacy at a local senior wellness group. She was 76 when she remarried. At first, her story sounded like something out of a sweet romance movie. Her new husband was kind, attentive, and full of jokes that made her laugh like a teenager again. But just months into the marriage, he suffered a minor stroke, and everything shifted. Linda found herself lifting his body in and out of chairs. She learned to adjust to his therapy routines, organize medications, bathe and feed him while her own health silently crumbled. Her knees ached constantly. Her vision blurred more each week, but she told no one. She thought, this is love. I should be strong. I should be able to handle it. By the time she asked for help, Linda was a shadow of the woman she used to be. Her joy had dimmed. Her smile was tired. And it wasn't because she stopped loving, it was because she forgot to love herself in the process. Here's the painful truth. No matter how deep your compassion, you cannot give endlessly without breaking. You can't draw from an empty well. And in your later years, your physical and emotional energy are not infinite. They are precious and must be fiercely protected. Remarriage, for all its potential joys, can subtly turn into an ongoing, demanding health role, especially if boundaries are not clearly established from the start. And no one talks about that. No one warns you that saying yes to love might also be saying yes to becoming a nurse, a caretaker, or a 24/7 support system. So before you walk down that aisle again, ask yourself with complete honesty, am I truly ready physically, emotionally, and mentally to care for someone else through all the health challenges the future may bring? Not just today, but tomorrow, and for all the days after that. If your gut hesitates even a little, listen to that inner voice. It's not fear, it's wisdom. And your wellness matters, perhaps now more than it ever has. You've spent decades caring for others. It is okay to say, this time I choose to care for me. If this message is resonating with you, leave a 2 in the comments so I know you're still here, still engaged. And if you haven't yet subscribed, consider hitting that button and turning on notifications, because these conversations matter. They protect futures, they restore dignity, and they help you make decisions that truly serve your peace of mind. Now let's talk about something that often slips under the radar. Reason number 3, legal landmines. One of the biggest risks of remarrying later in life isn't about romance or even health. It's legal, and it's often invisible until it's too late. Many seniors step into marriage thinking love is all that matters. But what they don't see are the tangled webs of inheritance laws, estate conflicts, property rights, and guardianship issues that can unfold, impacting not just you, but also your children and grandchildren for years to come. Let's talk about something few people want to think about, but everyone over 70 should. What happens to your legacy if you remarry? You've likely spent your entire adult life building a foundation brick by brick, a modest but meaningful home, a reliable pension, a savings account built from years of discipline, perhaps even a few cherished heirlooms tucked away for the grandchildren. You probably have your will drafted, your beneficiaries chosen, and your wishes clearly laid out. But here's the part no one warns you about. All of that careful planning can unravel with a single decision to remarry. In many states, a new spouse is automatically entitled to a significant share of your estate, regardless of what your will says. That's right. Even if you've specified that your children or grandchildren should inherit specific assets, your new partner may have a legal claim that overrides those wishes. The law often sees them as your closest next of kin. What does that mean for your family? It means your children may receive less than you intended, or in the worst cases, nothing at all. And sadly, many families end up tangled in long, painful legal battles after the passing of a parent. Not out of greed, but because the original intentions were legally compromised. And the ripple effects don't stop there. If you're currently receiving Social Security survivor benefits from a late spouse, benefits that offer you a steady, essential income, those could vanish the moment you remarry. Many widows, especially those who were married for decades, rely on those monthly payments. Losing them can create a gap in income that isn't easily filled, especially in your 70s or 80s. And then there's the issue of medical power of attorney. Let's say something unexpected happens. A fall, a stroke, a serious diagnosis. You end up in the hospital unconscious or unable to speak for yourself. Who will the doctors turn to for decisions? In most cases, if you're legally married, your new spouse gets that authority automatically. Even if your adult children know your values better, even if they're the ones who've been by your side for decades, they may have no legal voice in that moment. Unless you've made very specific legal arrangements in advance, your new partner is in charge. Now imagine the emotional damage if your new spouse and your children don't get along. What was already a difficult moment could turn into heartbreak, confusion, or even legal conflict. That's exactly what happened to a woman named Helen, though I've changed her name to protect privacy. She was 81 when she married a kind gentleman that she met through her local church. They shared peaceful afternoons and companionship. But when Helen fell seriously ill 2 years later, everything changed. Her daughter, who had always been close and attentive, was suddenly shut out of the decision-making process. The new husband had the final say about her treatment, her care, even the future of the family home, a home Helen had always dreamed of passing down to her grandchildren. The situation turned bitter. The family went to court, tears were shed, relationships were damaged, some permanently. And Helen, heartbroken, once said from her hospital bed, "I just wanted comfort in my final years. I never thought I'd create a storm." So if you're considering remarriage in your later years, don't just ask yourself if your heart is ready. Ask if your legacy is protected. Ask whether your legal and financial future reflects what you truly want for yourself and for those you love. Because no matter how romantic it feels, a marriage license isn't just a symbol of love. It's a binding contract with real lasting consequences. Many older women, especially those who've spent years building a safe, stable life, don't want to think about paperwork when love enters the picture. After all, when your heart is involved or loneliness creeps in, who wants to talk about wills, lawyers, and legal contracts? But that's exactly when you must be clearest. Not cold, not cynical, just wise. Because remarriage isn't just a romantic gesture. It's a legally binding agreement, one that comes with consequences that can stretch far beyond what you may expect. At this stage of life, clarity isn't unromantic. It's essential, it's protective, and it's loving not just for you, but for the family that stood by you through every season of your life. If you care about preserving your legacy, maintaining peace within your family, and protecting the life you've worked so hard to build, you owe it to yourself to pause. Ask the hard questions. Consult with someone who understands elder law. Because what may look like a beautiful new beginning could, without proper planning, end in heartache and legal confusion. And that brings us to another risk that very few people talk about: loss of personal freedom. By the time you've reached your 70s or 80s, you've likely earned more than just financial stability. What you've truly earned and deserve is freedom. The freedom to sleep in, to sip your coffee slowly as the sun rises, to read a book in silence, take a walk without needing to explain yourself, or enjoy dinner exactly when and how you like it. You've lived through decades of caregiving, partnership, sacrifice, and compromise. You've played the roles of spouse, parent, provider, nurturer. Now this season was meant to be yours. But remarriage, especially later in life, can chip away at that freedom in subtle but profound ways. When we marry, young compromise feels natural. We build a life together. We merge habits, plans, and hopes. But in your 70s, your identity is fully formed. You've learned what brings you peace. You've shaped a daily rhythm that supports your health and happiness. Bringing someone new into that delicate balance may sound nice in theory, but in practice, it can feel like disruption rather than connection. Let's speak plainly. By this age, most of us have our preferences. Some call it being set in our ways, but in truth, it's just knowing what works for you. And that's not a flaw. That's wisdom. You might enjoy your quiet mornings with a crossword puzzle or the sound of birds outside your window, but your new partner, maybe they prefer the TV blaring from dawn until night. Maybe they snore loudly or insist on a rigid routine that doesn't match your natural pace. Suddenly, what once felt like a peaceful home becomes a space you're constantly adjusting to. And here's the tough part: because you're older, adapting is harder. Your energy is more limited. Your tolerance for change isn't what it used to be, and that's okay. You don't have to justify wanting your space, your solitude, your time, because after everything you've done for others, you have every right to protect what little piece you've carved out for yourself. Maybe your new partner prefers 3 full meals every single day, while you've grown content with a light breakfast, a cup of tea, and a simple supper when you feel like it. Maybe they want to plan outings, socialize often, or keep the television running constantly, while you've come to love your quiet routines and flexible days. At first, these differences may seem trivial, just small adjustments in a blooming relationship, but over time they accumulate, and that accumulation can wear on you. It's not just about giving up preferences, it's about giving up peace one little moment at a time. There's also the invisible work that comes with any close bond emotional labor. The listening, the explaining, the gentle negotiations. Managing moods, smoothing over misunderstandings, being patient when you're already tired. Before you know it, your energy isn't going toward your hobbies or self-care anymore. It's going toward maintaining harmony. Instead of painting, reading, or walking in the park, you find yourself planning meals, coordinating medication schedules, or navigating tricky conversations with their family. Your precious solitude becomes something you have to fight for, or worse, ask permission to enjoy. And your independence, the very thing you've worked so hard to regain, it begins to quietly erode. Let me share with you the story of a remarkable woman named Evelyn. At 76, after 5 years of widowhood, she met a kind man at a book club. They clicked. They laughed. They filled the silence in each other's homes. At first, Evelyn felt alive again, walking hand in hand in the park, sharing meals, talking late into the night. But slowly she noticed things shifting. Her morning ritual of journaling in silence was replaced by the clatter of dishes and conversation. Her solo trips to the mountains became a memory because he didn't like traveling far. Even adjusting the thermostat became a negotiation. "I never used to think twice about making tea and curling up in my chair," she once told me. "But now everything feels like a discussion. And at this age, even the smallest compromises feel heavier." Evelyn wasn't bitter. She wasn't heartbroken. She was simply exhausted. Not from love, but from the slow, steady loss of the quiet life she had built on her own terms. This isn't to say that companionship is wrong or that romance has an expiration date, not at all. But it is to say that freedom becomes more valuable the older we get, peace of mind becomes sacred, and living life without unnecessary compromise. That's a luxury too often underestimated. You've already done your share of sacrificing, raising children, supporting spouses, managing homes, putting others first. You've earned the right to enjoy relationships that honor your rhythm, not ones that disrupt it. So before you say yes to a new life together, ask yourself honestly, are you ready to trade solitude for shared decisions? Comfort for compromise, a quiet and mornings for conversations that may not always align with your pace. If your answer is uncertain, that's okay. Because sometimes protecting your space is the most loving choice you can make for yourself. And if you're still here, still watching, and this message resonates with you, I'd love to know. Drop a 4 in the comments. It lets me know you're walking this journey of reflection with me. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now might be the perfect moment. By clicking that button and turning on the notification bell, you'll stay updated on meaningful conversations like this, designed to inform, protect, and empower you in the most important season of life. Your support allows us to continue creating content that truly matters. Now let's move on to one of the most overlooked and potentially damaging risks of remarrying later in life, financial entanglement. Yes, finding companionship in your 70s can be beautiful, but when it comes to money, emotions can blur the lines and open doors to financial strain, confusion, and long-term vulnerability. When you're in your 30s or 40s, merging finances with a partner often feels natural. You're building a life from the ground up, saving for a home, planning for children, dreaming about retirement together. But once you've crossed into your 70s, the financial reality is vastly different. You're not in the building phase anymore. You're in the preserving phase. This is the chapter where your goal is to protect everything you've worked so hard to earn: your savings, your home, your pension, and above all, your peace of mind. Unfortunately, remarriage at this stage can quietly dismantle the financial boundaries you thought were secure. Let's be clear. Your money in your later years isn't just about numbers. It's about freedom. The freedom to choose where you live, how you spend your time, what healthcare you receive, and how generously you support your family or causes you care about. It's your safety net, and it deserves to be fiercely protected. But when you remarry, your financial world often doesn't just expand, it blends. Depending on the laws where you live and how you structure your relationship, things like Social Security benefits, pensions, property, or even debt can become shared. And if you don't have crystal clear legal agreements beforehand, you could be handing over control of your life savings without even realizing it. Let's paint a scenario that happens more often than you think. Imagine you marry someone who has children from a previous relationship. Now ask yourself, if you were to pass away before them, where would your assets go, to your own children or to theirs? Unless you've taken the time to revise your will, update your beneficiaries, and possibly create a prenuptial agreement, your intentions may not be honored. Even worse, your loved ones might end up in court arguing not just about money, but about love, loyalty, and who you truly wanted to protect. Families have been torn apart over less, and it doesn't stop there. What if your new spouse brings hidden debts into the marriage? Or what if they have different values around money? Perhaps they're more generous with their adult children, willing to lend large amounts or cover expenses you're not comfortable with. You've spent decades being careful, disciplined, and intentional with your finances. One signature on a marriage certificate can change all of that. This isn't about assuming the worst. It's about preparing for reality. Because the truth is, love doesn't erase financial risk. And protecting your future, even in love, is one of the most important acts of self-respect you can make. Maybe your new spouse has different spending habits, credit cards piling up, casual loans to others, or poor money management. Suddenly, the careful financial cushion you spent a lifetime building begins to thin out. And it doesn't take much: one joint account, one shared signature, to put your entire future at risk. I remember speaking with a kind man named Walter. He was 82, gentle in demeanor, and had remarried after the passing of his wife of 50 years. He told me he didn't think much about finances at the time. He just wanted someone to talk to at dinner again. He missed the warmth of conversation, the simple companionship. But within 2 short years, Walter found himself paying off his new wife's medical debts, covering rent for her adult son, and eventually selling the lake house he had hoped to pass on to his daughter, a home filled with memories from his first marriage. He looked me in the eyes and said quietly, "I thought I was gaining comfort, but I ended up losing half of everything I had." This isn't to say that remarriage is always financially harmful. Love in later life can be meaningful and beautiful, but without clarity, legal protection, and honest planning, the risks are far higher than most people realize. And the margin for error in your 70s and beyond, it's a lot smaller than it used to be. So ask yourself, do you truly have the time, energy, and clarity to manage a complex financial merger? Are you ready to protect not just your heart, but your home, your estate, your family, and your legacy? And if any part of you hesitates, that's not weakness, it's wisdom. You owe it to yourself to pause, to ask the hard questions, to seek the right guidance before making a decision that could shape the rest of your life. Because at this stage, you've earned the right to peace, not pressure. Security, not sacrifice. Freedom, not financial stress. Let's be honest, by the time we reach our 70s, we've walked through storms many can't imagine. We have held hands through funerals. We've rebuilt after heartbreak. We've raised children, buried loved ones, and stood strong in silence more times than we can count. We've learned slowly and painfully that real joy doesn't come from what we accumulate, it comes from what we release. And that's what makes remarriage in later life such a profound decision. It's not just about companionship anymore. It's about asking yourself, how do I want to spend the most sacred years I have left, in harmony or in complication, in peace or in quiet resentment, with independence or with obligations that were never mine to carry? If you're still watching and this message has touched you, drop a number 5 in the comments. Let me know you're here walking this path with honesty and courage. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, your support allows us to keep creating content that matters, content that honors your journey, your wisdom, and your worth. Until next time, remember, you are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not unloving for valuing your freedom. You are simply wise enough to choose a life that feels like yours. Maybe as you're watching this, you're quietly thinking to yourself, but I'm lonely. I just want someone to grow old with. If that's, that feeling is real. It's deeply human. And there is nothing wrong with wanting connection, warmth, and someone by your side. But here's a gentle truth I've come to understand from speaking with so many people in their 70s, 80s, and beyond. Companionship doesn't have to come with a marriage license. It doesn't have to be a legal agreement to be meaningful. Connection can come in many forms, from old friends who still know how to make you laugh, from grandchildren whose hugs light up your heart, From neighbors, community gatherings, support groups, or even from rediscovering your own company in a way you never had the chance to before. You see, we've been taught that a romantic partner is the ultimate destination, that to be partnered is to be complete. But what if that's not true? What if right now you're already whole? What if this chapter of your life isn't about merging with someone else, but about returning to yourself gently, lovingly, without apology? Imagine waking up and not needing to explain your choices, not adjusting who you are for someone else, not negotiating how you spend your day, not dimming your light to make room for another. That's not loneliness. That's freedom. That's not being alone. That's finally being at peace. I've met many wise women and men who remarried later in life, only to admit later softly with a touch of sadness that they miss their solitude. They miss their own rhythm. They miss being able to breathe without compromise. Some even said, "I wish I had waited. I wish I had asked myself what I really wanted, not what I thought I was supposed to want." Because once you're past 70, you don't owe anyone anything. Not a performance, not a role, not another sacrifice. You've already proven your strength simply by arriving here through all the storms, the joys, the losses, the reinventions. You've done enough. You are enough. So before you say "I do" again, say this to yourself first: I deserve. You deserve peace. You deserve laughter that feels effortless. You deserve quiet mornings without explanations. You deserve a life shaped by your truth, not someone else's mold. And if remarriage brings that to you, then embrace it with open arms. But if it doesn't, walk proudly in your own space. Because this season isn't about proving anything. It's about choosing wisely, living gently, and loving fully on your terms. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to hear it. Please share one insight you're taking with you from this video in the comments below. Your voice matters here, truly. And if you found this conversation helpful, please give the video a like, subscribe, and consider sharing it with someone you care about. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content for hearts just like yours. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Take care of yourself, trust your wisdom, and we'll see you in the next video.